Let's look at Kula Shaker.
Rank the albums.
Within the kind of British musosphere, Kula Shaker are a kind of punchline band. Somewhere alongside like Menswear, an example of a thing that was overrated when their album went to #1. I think some of that perception comes from Crispian Mills being upper class. Have a look who his parents are. And just surfacing in that second wave of Britpop when anyone could get signed. I almost got signed. If you think that of Kula Shaker, then sucks to be you because you're missing out on a great band. I think their particular skill is Crispian's guitar playing, and famously they bring an Indian raga influence to their music. I hope I'm using the term raga correctly. Whether or not it's right for a white boy to be doing that, Crispian is very obviously honest in his Hinduism, and I think that might give him a pass. The overhyped debut album, K, is in the shape of a debut album. It's got a pile of singles on it, and then a few extra to make it flow together. And it does flow together. It brings compelling blues rock, often soaked in raga. Its singles are great, and the album is great. But now is it time for the follow-up that gets a bit pretentious? Not quite yet, they did this EP in between. It's mainly worth getting for Go Kula, a ridiculously good riff. Technically not their riff, but being an EP, it's not an essential purchase. Kind of a filler chronologically, just bought some time whilst they were preparing their next release. Doesn't mean it's filler in content, but doesn't match up to the debut album. Now is it time for the pretentious follow-up? You bet your ass it is. I think you might see Peasants, Pigs and Astronauts in the kind of bargain buckets of CDs. Even that's an old reference, isn't it? Landfill, maybe. Maybe people wanted more of the bouncy summer fun of the first album, but they even get that on this. But it's sewn together into a better overall product. It is one of those that you can describe as a bit proggy. I'll probably say this in a few of these videos. As a second album, it feels like there's more of a concept to it. It's Kula Shaker's best work, and you can laugh or you can listen. You know, why miss out on that? That brings the first set of Kula Shaker to a close. When you've had hits like that and it peters out, it peters out. Crispian went on to front another band called the Jeevas. Now, from what you know about Crispian, someone who's good at blues rock and roll and raga influences, you might expect a band called the Jeevas to focus on the latter. No, he went very much the other way, and kind of to a point that it's disposable stuff. I've not kept copies of those albums. That not exactly worthwhile. Maybe they would impress if they were released in like 1966, but that's kind of when they belong. A couple of highlights each, but it's Crispian coasting and somewhat wasting his talents at that point, in my opinion. Of the two, I'd say that the second album is a more impressive listen than the first, but no need. That brings us to the reunion of Kula Shaker. They first tested the waters with another EP. Honestly, this is a bit throwaway. The things that are good about this are on the next release. This is going at the bottom. Then the next album was called Strange Folk. It brings back the strengths of Kula Shaker, but it does also continue that kind of plainer blues rock thread from the Jeevas, but in a more confident and stronger approach. But it's still not a particularly impressive release, it's just quite good in general. There's some time wasted, there's a ridiculous impression of Fitter Happier on here. If you do get a copy of this, get it with the track Super CB Operator on it. That's a really good bonus track. It's worthwhile Kula Shaker, it's a better product than those EPs, but it's not going to stand up to their earlier albums. Solid but inessential, that returning album. Then their second reunion album was called Pilgrims Progress. I find that album to be a massive misstep into the bland, plain songwriting. This could have been called another Jeevas release. Skip that one. And when you do skip that one, it brings you to the terribly titled K 2.0. It might be a bad title, but it's a justified title because this is a worthy successor, just a string of Crispian demonstrating everything he's learned along the way. Sorry, I'm really underrating the other band members in this appraisal.
It's alright, we're used to it.
Again, there's a bonus track not to miss out on called Two Sticks, but even without Two Sticks, this is a perfectly solid album. It's gonna go a smidge below the original K, but you know, I'm not too sure about that. It's very close. That's the Kula Shaker career. None of these discs actually have the track Hush on them, which, you know, is famously a cover song that they did very well. And I can dig their B-sides in general, there's some good stuff there.
Their silly Christmas tracks are dire.
But the best stuff is on Peasants, Pigs and Astronauts, then their debut, K2.0. The rest of it, have a look if you dig what I've just mentioned. They're very worth seeing live, especially for Crispian's frontman skills singing whilst playing lead guitar. They're a good fun band, but they don't lack for sincerity. It's often worth a shower in their music. Showers of Kula Shaker are nice.
Looks like there'll be a pretentious new double album with ridiculous cover art this year. Looks awesome.